Good day. Welcome back. Daryl D TV. We're back in the dollar bins, and we're back in the dollar bins with some more really cool jazz. All right. Now, I'm not the jazz expert. I like what I like, and it pretty much that's where it starts and ends with me. The jazz I really get into is the soothing, smooth jazz or the real funky jazz. Not a big fan of like too much anything outside of that. I have a little bit of free jazz, but I don't really get into it like that. It's just more so some really rare, interesting, eccentric type albums that would fit in that category. But for the most part, I just like cool, soothing stuff or like really funky stuff, especially if it's got like drums or samples and things of that nature. It makes it that much cooler. That being said, I want to show you some more cool jazz records that I found in the dollar bin, and this kind of thing never gets old. Uh, I just love finding cool jazz for not a lot of money. Now, I'm not a big, huge stickler on condition. Of course, anybody would, the nicer the record, the cooler it is. But as long as it's not skipping, you know what I mean, and it's not too noisy, it's cool with me. That being said, let's get started. I pulled out 10 more records that I've found in the dollar bins over the years, and I want to share some of those records with you today. All right, let's do it. The first one I want to show you, I always get these names. Forgive me if I don't pronounce everything right, but this is Jaco Pastorius. Am I saying that right? And what's the name of this album? I don't even think this album has a name. Now, the cool thing about this album, or I should say, I knew about this record many years ago. Actually, this is the second time I've owned this record. Now, I had got familiar with this record based off of a song. What was the song called? It was called Ocus Pocus? Opus Pocus? Something like that. That was a sample off the J-Lib album for the Strip Club song. And that somehow that record put me onto this record, and I ended up finding it. Now, I'm not sure how much this record really goes for right now, but I know when I first bought this record, which was many years, it had to have been a good, well, that had to have been a good 12, 13, 14 years ago, at least. And I found it at Amoeba in Hollywood. The original Amoeba on Sunset. And it was $10. Now, if you've ever been to that Amoeba, you know that their jazz section is like the size of most record stores. But so there's a lot of jazz in there. But I found it was only $10. And I thought that was pretty cool because I knew back then it went for a whole lot more than that. I want to say back then it was at least a $40 to $60 record, if my memory serves me correct. And somewhere along the way, it just disappeared. This record like disappeared out of my collection, and I'm pretty careful when it comes to my records. I don't lend my records out. I wouldn't have taken it out to DJ with. I don't recall. I have played parties where we were just playing off samples and stuff, but I don't know how this record disappeared or what might have happened, but all I know, it was gone one day, and that was that. I didn't try to pursue it again because I didn't want to pay what it was going for. But I recently picked it up again, and I got this from Records and Candy. a shop right here in town, and I got it for $1. I do believe uh, the owner, Josh, a buddy of mine, actually, he was going to give me this for free, but I gave him, probably a couple bucks, but I'm putting it in that dollar range. And I was so happy to get it back in my collection because there's two songs on here I really, really like. The other song is Portrait of Tracy, which is the song that was sampled for SWV Rain. Very, very soothing, mellow song, beautiful song by both artists, Jocko and SWV. So I was very happy to get this back into my collection. Yeah, there's you know, some damage there along the spine, but hey, who cares? I got the record. Sounds fantastic. Doesn't skip. I'll take that all day. That's the first one I want to show you. Now, the second one I want to show you, I haven't pulled this one out in a little while. And this is Luis Casca. Let me go back. I also want to mention that Herbie Hancock is on this record. And so that's pretty cool. Anyway, here's Luis Casca. And what's the name of this album? I can't even tell. What is this called? Oh, it's self-titled. Blue Note. If I'm not mistaken, I may have picked this up more than likely at the Beat Swap Meet in LA. Now, on a number of videos, I've spoken about the Beat Swap Meet. Unfortunately, it's not happening, but it was only like the coolest record show ever in history. But it took place in LA. Big ups to Utmost for putting this on. It used to be right down in Chinatown. And it just, as I've mentioned in the past, it started off as a record show that was maybe 1.5 floors inside of a jazz club. And it just completely exploded into a all-out festival, music festival, basically. So it grew from a record show to they started, selling gear and music memorabilia. There were food vendors out there. There was live music. There was live DJs everywhere. There were ciphers everywhere, and there was a lot of live bands, jazz bands. Mostly there was production battles inside of the club. It was all outside of the club and throughout that whole shopping area. There was in its heyday, there was probably somewhere between 10,000 people going through there throughout the course of a day. It would start at noon and go to 6 o'clock. Of course, Daryl D was in there at 8, 9 o'clock digging crazy. By 11 o'clock, I would be 2 crates deep, in vinyl that I would find. Anyway, that was a gold mine for finding just cheap vinyl in general. Don't get me wrong. They had all of the expensive stuff and some of the most rarest and sought after vinyl you've ever seen in your life. But if you were looking for certain records and they might have been somewhere between VG Plus, or this one, maybe the cover's a little split, you'd see them down there. $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 a piece. Records that would normally cost a whole lot more than that. And I found tons and tons and tons. I don't think I've ever walked away from that show without at least coming home with 2 crates of records. and one and a half of those crates came from the Beat Swap Meet. And that's in addition to 45s and cassettes and things of that nature. But this is where I got I love this album. If you're not familiar with this artist, I'm not going to sit here like I'm super familiar with him. I'm not. This is the only record that I have of his. I would definitely describe it as funky and soothing, mellow and soothing at the exact same time. How you grab both of those out of that, I'm not really sure, but it's a beautiful thing. This is a great album. I'm not familiar with how much it normally goes for, or how big of an artist, or how rare, or anything like that. I have no idea. I just know that I got it for $1. I love it. They got the sister with the afro and the rose on there. So you really can't go wrong. And please, anybody, feel free to contribute whatever you can. And please don't be so hard on me if I butcher some of these names. Number 3. This is a familiar one. This is Visions of a New World. Lonnie Liston Smith and the Cosmic Echoes. I probably have at least 3 copies of this. I might have 2 now. I think I gave one away. This is my better copy. I think my first copy I bought from a record store called Balcony Lights in Las Vegas many years ago. I think that was early 2000s. And I mentioned this on some other video, but a fun fact about that record store that's not around. It was like right across the street from Big B's and on the next block over from Hip Hop Site. But it was like a hard rock store, like a heavy metal rock type of shop. And all of their R&B, all of their rap music, all of their black music, they would have in the dollar crates, most of it, $1 to $2 crates, and they would have them like underneath, underneath the regular record bins. And so I'm down there on my knees, man, going through these crates and grabbing the stuff up like crazy. The stuff I used to pull out of that store. Woo, man, I miss those days. Anyway, anything that Lonnie Smith puts out is pretty much gold. If you're familiar with this album, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. For jazz, this album has it all. It's got the funky stuff, it's got the smooth stuff, the mellow stuff, the eccentric stuff. This guy is 10 out of 10 every last single time. Flying Dutchman is the label. If you know, you know. They don't put out anything but butter. And this one is a gatefold. My man, he got that cool hat on. You know what I'm saying? That super cool shirt. You know what I mean? So yeah, this copy, this is my better copy. This was a Beat Swap Meet find too, if I'm not mistaken. But I think I paid $1 for my first copy, and this one might have been $2 or $3, something like that. But yeah, I do have 2. I used to have 3 copies of this. Now I'm down to 2. I'm gonna keep it right there. My good copy is the one that, of course, you got to have a good copy if you can. My first copy is very sentimental to me. Moving right along. Okay, here's one of my favorite albums in my jazz collection. This is Bobby Humphrey's Blacks and Blues. And what can I say about this record? You gotta know about this record. You've heard this. Another Blue Note special. This particular record, this one actually cost me $2, $1.99. And I bought this from a local chain. It's called Zia. They used to be fantastic. Now they're a joke. Anyway, this one, actually, that's not too far from where I live right now. I was in there. This was a long time ago. This must have been the mid-2000s, somewhere in there. And I went in there one evening, and they must have just gotten uh, a big jazz and funk collection. The stuff that I pulled out of there. Ooh, I just remembered another record that I bought out of there that same night. I'm going to have to show you that one next. That's what I'm going to do. So, anyway, they had this big collection that they had just gotten in, and this was one of them that I pulled out. It was some incredible, incredible stuff. I just thought of another record that I found in there. I'm going to have to show you that one too. So, it I bought so many records that night that they had like one of those milk crates under there, and I filled up the whole milk crate and then another half a crate. And I just remember I go and I put this big crate up on the counter when I was ready to check out, and they were like, "Man, you bought all those records. You can keep the crate too, you know." So that's what I carried all the records out in, and then I hit it like real good one more time before before I started telling people about it. And then I told a few people, and then they went in there and they started grabbing stuff out of there. It was enough for everybody. It was, man, that was one of the best jazz licks I ever hit. It was incredible. And yeah, like I said, this album is funky and soothing at the same time. Funky and mellow throughout the whole thing. Bobby Humphries, everything she put out is great. If you see her albums, grab them all. But this is the one that you want the most. This is definitely, in my opinion, her best release. And as I said, it's on Blue Note. It's a beautiful thing. All right, moving right along. Let me go grab a couple more that I got from that same stash. So hold on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Now, let's move Bobby over here. So another record that I got out of that same stash was Gary Bart's Harlem Bush Music. This was, I didn't know anything about this record before I bought it. I just know that it looked cool. The cover is really, really super dope looking. And I just loved like the red, black, and green going across the front. So I took it home. Now, when I was listening to this record, one thing that was interesting, let me see if I can find it right here. Okay, so let me pull this out. There's one other one I need to grab. Okay, so this is a 12-inch. I should have pulled out the album, but this is actually better. This is a 12-inch, rap 12-inch by a group called Gumbo. And the name of this song is A Free Soul. Gumbo was a part of the Life Music crew with Arrested Development from my hometown of Milwaukee. And this is their second single off of their album Dropping Soulful H2O on the fiber, which looks like this. Anyway, this single called A Free Soul, it has a Molly Mall remix on here of A Free Soul. And the Molly Mall remix of this samples a song on this album. Let me see if I can find the song. Nah, I'm not going to be able to find it. I didn't mark it. There's a song on here that doom doo doom 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 doom. I've been painting today, okay, so don't mind the paint. Anyway, they sampled that on this album. Molly Mall sampled it. And so, of course, I was familiar with this way sooner than I was familiar with this. I didn't know anything about this record. But When I heard that song come on, oh man, that made this record an instant keeper. It wasn't going anywhere. It was staying in the collection forever. And the album all around is a very, very cool record. I'm sure, I think this record goes for a couple bucks. I'm not sure. I've never researched it or anything like that. But this is a great record. And again, this was out of that stash at that one shop, $1.99 all day. And another one, the last one I want to show you, the last jazz album I want to show you that came out of that stash, believe it or not. Yeah. Roy Ayers Music Group. And of course, everybody knows this record. If you're into jazz and you don't know that record, then I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, that was in there for $1.99. And what's crazy is they have another shop in Tucson. They used to have two more shops there. It's only one now, but way back in the day, I found this album also at the Tucson location, and it was also $1.99. How do you like that? So when I say that that was an incredible stash of jazz and some R&B and funk records in there, it was crazy. Crazy enough to where I bought at least, when it was all over and done, I bought at least 2 crates worth of records and then took a couple other people there afterwards and they found a bunch of stuff in there. Now, just a little bonus to that story. You know, $1.99 crate and a half at that first visit tends to add up. You know what I mean? And so there, I was like, this is all I really want to spend tonight. You know, so I was kind of debating on some records that maybe I should put back for now or whatever. Anyway, one of the records that I had grabbed was this Emotions record. And I had never seen this record before. You know, I'm familiar with some of the later Emotions stuff, but I ended up putting that record back. And then I got down to like 2 or 3 records, and I was like, which ones do I want? Which ones do I want to leave here? So I had put this one back, and then I'm looking at the other ones, and then I picked this one up again, and I was like, this looks really cool, though. And I flipped on the back, and then I saw that it was on Stax Records. And so once I saw Stax, I was like, okay, well, this is coming home with me. Even if I'm not familiar with this record, I know, you know, about Stax, and, you know, Stax is pretty much a winner every time. And fast forward to, I don't know, days later, a week later, I don't know when it was. I'm cleaning up the house, and I'm putting on records that I need to listen to and check out. And I have this record playing, and I'm washing dishes, and all of a sudden I hear the Blind Alley song come on, and I'm like, oh, man, I was gonna leave this record. I'm so glad I changed my mind. I'm so glad I picked it back up and did a little bit more looking and saw that it was on Stax and took it home. Because who knows if it would have still been there the next time. Who knows? And who knows if I ever would have been able to afford it again. Because I can't honestly say I recall ever seeing this record out in a while again. I don't think I have. There was one store I went to where they just had the empty sleeve in the store, and the record was missing out of the sleeve, but that was as far as, you know, I can take it as far as ever seeing it again. So, you know, that's just a cool little side story about that incredible stash that I found at that shop. All right, we got a few more left. Al Hirt, Soul in a Horn. This was a record. You know, Al Hirt is one of those musicians where you've seen a zillion of his records at the Goodwill. I mean, this dude's got a lot of albums. And Usually there's nothing, nothing for me anyway. But then I found out about this album, and it had us a song called, where is it? Harlem Hindu. And I know that Run DMC sampled a song, sampled that song on their Back from Hell album, and it was called Check Out the Avenue. And so when I found that out, of course, I went on the hunt looking for this thing. And I didn't like. I only looked throughout like the thrift stores, and I eventually found it and bought it. And then after that, I guess it kind of. I don't know. I guess it kind of caught on, or maybe it was already on. But every time I would find one of these at the thrift store, I was able to sell it for a whole lot more than I actually purchased it for. So that was cool. I haven't seen one of these in a long time, but at the same time, I haven't been looking either. Okay, the diverse Yusef Lateef. Now I have maybe 3 or 4 of his albums. Real deep dude. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys out there can go way more into depth about this dude and his musicianship and his whole background. I don't have a whole lot to say other than I do enjoy a lot of his music. Now, this is another guy that's got a zillion records, albums out, and I'm not sure if there was something on here in particular that drew me to this particular album. There's only 4 songs on here, so I'm not sure if it was that or if it was just the fact that it's Yusef Lateef. I know he's been sampled a lot. I know he's very deep and very collectible. So I don't know. It's probably leaning towards that. You see a Yusef Lateef record and you see it cheap, you buy it. Another dollar record. More than likely, this also came from the Beat Swap Meet in LA back in the day, and I've just had it in my collection all of these years. Okay, so here's a recent one that I found. This is Charles Kennard, and this is the Woga album. Kind of chewed up on the in the corner there, but that's this record. Now this 366. You know what I love about old jazz records is their label art, their label emblems, whatever you want to call it, are so recognizable. And it's like everything I see with that, I pretty much grab it because there's a good chance it's something cool. And you can say the same thing about like Kudu and Prestige and CTI and all of those cool Milestone and Chess and all of those cool jazz labels. You see them, you go, I gotta have it. Blue Note and all of that. So I saw that and I had to pick that up. $1. I paid $1 for this. I got this out of a shop in Long Beach. As a matter of fact, I got this at VIP in Long Beach. VIP Records was just up there not too long ago. I found this sweet gem. Look at dude. He means a lot of business. Look at him. He's focused. He's concentrating. He's got his little thing for his eyeglasses. You know what I mean? You can tell he's got nothing to prove. He's just trying to do the music. And yeah, this is a sweet one. Anybody know about this record? What can anybody tell me about this one? And then the last one I want to show you is another recent pickup. Where did I get this record? That one came from VIP. This one, where did I get this? Did I get this in Michigan? I know I didn't find it in town here. I can't remember where I got this record from. I apologize, but this is Lee Morgan, the Sidewinder. I know this is a very popular record. I've seen this record, but I've never actually owned it. I'm getting more into this type of older jazz, you know what I mean, and this stuff I'm starting to slightly understand it a little bit more, because jazz is very, very hard to figure out for me, especially not being a quote unquote jazz guy. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but this is like deep jazz. That's how I would describe it. It's not your average, everyday, run of the mill jazz. You gotta be like, this is like that connoisseur, that jazz connoisseur jazz. That's the kind of jazz this is. So I'm just kind of dipping my feet. I have, you know, a handful or two of albums that I would describe in this manner, but this one is one I've really, really been getting into, and I'm starting to really dig this kind of jazz a lot more than I did maybe 10 years or so ago. And again, it was $1. You gotta love that. I don't know. I know this is a popular record, and I know it goes for, a nice penny, especially in really good condition. This one is all right. This is like VG plus, but yeah, I got it for $1. I'll take that all day, every day, even on holidays. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's the 10 more jazz records. I think that was 10. It was at least 10. Yeah, that was 10. 10 more jazz records I found for $1. A couple were $1.99, but this is what happens when you're a hardcore digger like myself. Trust me, you stay out there in them crates, you will find everything you're looking for eventually. That's all I got. This is Daryl D. Thank y'all for hanging out. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.